Hey, everybody. Welcome to another monthly hangout with me and some of my Patreon patrons. Thanks for watching. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's always fun, like, before we get started, because we always end up talking about something, and I never have any idea what it's going to be that we're talking about. And this time, for some reason, I don't even remember. Oh, it was because I fucked up a Stuffy video this week, and it was late. We're talking about editing and how much better it is to live in the digital age where you don't have to actually cut physical film or physical tape and mop perspiration from your brow as you're like, oh God, I hope I'm cutting this.
Never mind syncing up sound and video. I mean, I can't tell you how much time I used to spend on a Steenbeck film editor just syncing up sound and video. Although I mean, there could be fun involved in that, but that at times, I mean, again, this is why I've got a bald spot.
Wait a minute, you got a bald spot because of that, not because of like male pattern baldness genetics?
Experience counts for more.
You're spoiling the story, dude. Come on. I mean, you know about, when the legend's better than the real thing, print the legend. I mean, this is the legend.
It's because it's not because of
uphill both ways.
I mean, I feel bad about that too, because I record separate audio now for my videos, and it takes literally like 10 seconds to sync it up. Because actually some video editors, you do it automatically. I don't have one of those, but yeah, when I do the clap, like you just line up the spikes and then take out the camera audio and just replace it with the good audio, and there you go. You're done. But it's God, things are so much easier now. When I think
about you young kids, boy, when I was back doing that stuff when I was your age.
We have this.
And yet somehow YouTube has this ability where if you watch a video that is perfectly synced, the audio is perfectly synced, but it'll broadcast it separately and it'll be out of sync. And like and there's some videos, like I know for a fact the video was done in sync because I've seen it before and everything was matching up, and then another time I'm watching it and it's off. I'm like, how the hell did it do that?
This is literally the only thing your website does. All you do is play videos. Why can't you get this thing right?
Well, and also talking about recording in the 21st century, I've moved now to I'll record on my phone, I'll edit it on my phone, add in graphics, produce it, and then upload it to YouTube all on my phone.
Yeah. It's welcome to the future, right?
God damn it.
It's all you can. It's all on a device in your pocket.
I'm not coordinated enough to do that.
I feel like if I did that, I would be like, no, this is too far from being a job now. I can't just do it on the couch while I have something.
I want something big enough that I can manipulate it rather than just this little teeny tincture and I got to go like this and like that.
Just a tablet then. Do that on a tablet, and all those apps are on the phone are also on the
phone. Tablet I can almost see.
Reminds me of David Lynch saying, "How can you watch a movie on a phone?"
I do that all the time. I got used to
it. You can't see any detail on that little fucking phone.
That's why you bring it closer to your face.
You hold it right up to your face.
You have to remember, though, like me, he's old. And our eyesight's terrible. One thing I found out recently, because my eyesight's really bad. I looked up. I was talking. I finally met my uncle Steve that I told you about, the long uncle. So he was in this week, and we were talking about eyesight and everything like that. And I looked up what the definition of legal blindness was, and I've realized I'm actually by the day because it's like 2,200 is the legal definition. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I'm actually legally blind. I didn't even know that.
Wow. So does that mean you can get people to drive you around now?
Maybe.
Now the Jim Gaffigan sketches are like playing in my head. Since when did being blind became a legal issue? There are people pretending to be blind. We should make it a legal issue. Can someone be illegally blind?
It's these undocumented blind people that if you're gonna not be able to see, then you should do it the right way.
or we're going to take your children away.
Yeah, or we're going to take your children away. It's only fair.
It's only fair. What crime, you lose your kids.
What I want to do, all these people that are saying, well, they broke the law, blah, blah, blah. I want to say, okay, well, right, it's a federal misdemeanor. So if you've ever like, you know, been speeding, or if you ever like printed some stuff out on company paper,
right?
You know, these are all misdemeanor crimes. Hey, we're coming to your house, bud.
Yeah, if you're going to enforce the law like that, you enforce all the law. Like that. That's of course they won't do, because they've got their own little, you know, fetishes that they want to focus on.
Well, all kitty concentration camps matter.
Well, what I want to know is then why were they fine with the Bundys, you know, armed insurrection taking over a government building? By that,
because they're Republicans.
Oh, I forgot. You're Christian.
Exactly. Well, and they're the right color. I mean, absolutely.
That.
I mean, and there was an African American in the White House.
Oh, that's right. Because of that, there's no such thing as racism anymore. So what's happening to these people down at the border can't possibly be racist.
Also, no such thing as
and I still have the Brooklyn Bridge for sale for anybody who wants to buy it cheap.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm doing the video that goes up tomorrow has a lot of stuff in it about the border situation, and then after that I'm doing another Star Trek video, and there's part of me that's really like, oh God, I can't wait to talk about something silly and frivolous and just you know, because it's like I've done 3 videos where I talk a lot about the child separation and the camps and everything, and it's just like I feel like I have to talk about it, but it just grinds you down. It's like,
well, the thing is, you did need to talk about it. See, that had to come up. I mean, the second I saw that thing, you know, I was instantly, you know, Fudge, Portman, and Brown absolutely got their ears burned off. Although, you know, it floors me about Portman. I mean, I used to think that guy had a brain in his head, but I mean, I think he had a brainectomy or something. Because
I have to give my state's governor credit, Larry Hogan, the governor of Maryland, who is a Republican and who I didn't vote for and who I will not vote for this year. But he did the right thing. In response to all this awfulness, he recalled the Maryland National Guard resources.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw it too.
So, and he said specifically, that's why I'm doing it, because of the child separation. So I thought that was good.
Well, the thing that gets me about the right wing is like, you know, it's the false dichotomy. It's either, you know, because they of course accuse us of wanting open borders. It's like it's either.
Well, what's wrong with open borders? Let's put that
open borders.
It's either, you know, use Nazi tactics or allow everybody and anybody to come in without any say. I mean, there's an ocean. You know, between the two of those, the Pacific Ocean lies between that. And
I mean, I would say, how about we treat the Mexican border like we treat the Canadian border, where it's like, are we worried about undocumented Canadians crossing the border?
No, Canadians are stealing shoes. Shut up.
National security risk. There are no good shoe stores in Buffalo. I will tell you that right now.
Having lived there for 1 year, I can
sovereignty. Don't we care?
Well, see, here's the thing that was stupid about the whole shoe thing. It's like he wasn't saying that they were stealing. He was literally saying they're coming here, buying shoes, and then bringing them home.
Smuggling them across the border.
That's good. That actually helps the trade imbalance, you moron. What's wrong?
Where do you want them to do with the shoes they buy here?
Like, people are coming in from another country and spending money on American goods. That's a positive thing. If you don't know that, you can't.
We want that to happen. Yeah. Then instead, like, Trump wants to put tariffs on like European countries because he wants to piss everyone off again. I don't know.
We don't buy from the US and US postal costs are too ridiculous.
The tariffs that are already hurting American workers and American manufacturers.
Oh yeah, actually, I just had a quote refresh for a vendor or something. I had them quote like 2-3 months ago, and the customer's finally going to buy this stuff now. So the quote's too old. I have to refresh it, and I was told specifically from my vendor, like, oh yeah, thanks to the tariffs, the prices went up on all these things.
Yeah, I heard a story the other day about I can't remember the name of the company now, but it's a company in Missouri that previously, like until like a month ago, literally was the #1 manufacturer of steel nails. And now they've had to double their prices. They've lost like half their business, and they're afraid they might not last through the summer. They might go out of business by the end of the summer because of the tariffs, because the prices are so high.
And here's what's happened too, which again, totally predictable by anybody who understands economics. So the idea,
not Republicans.
That's right. Well, the Republicans think, okay, well, we raise the tariffs, so then American goods are more competitive or cheaper and all that. Well, what's happened is all the American steel companies have raised their prices as well, because why not? Like if everybody else's prices going up,
that's how much it costs. Yeah.
What killed me was when he started talking about all those European cars coming over here, and not that long ago. Well, actually, this is quite a while ago. I flew into South Carolina and drove up to this place where I was going to work on a cut to length line. And I drive past this huge campus right next door to the interstate. BMW?
Yeah.
Spartanburg campus. It's huge. It's beautiful. Those guys make more X3s, and they export. In fact, I believe all the X3s in the world are built in Spartanburg and exported around the world.
And there's a Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga.
Yeah. And Honda in Marysville.
Toyota in Tennessee and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of American-made cars from foreign companies. I'm not going to drove no Toyota. I want American-made. It's made.
We do have a Komatsu plant in Buffalo here, and this is where Komatsus are made, and Caterpillars are not made in the U.S. So
wow,
yeah.
Caterpillar, the American company.
Yes.
The largest private employer in Hagerstown is Volvo. We have a Volvo powertrain plant that has been the #1 private employer for years.
I read an analysis that, and I don't know, I can't remember where it was. I want to find it, but I can't. But basically, that Trump sees everything as zero sum. Either you're getting screwed or you're screwing someone over, and he cannot.
We all know how good he is at screwing.
Well,
probably not very. I mean, have you seen his hand?
Ran by the tariffs.
I think Stormy described it as standard.
That's not what you want to hear. That's like,
but it's now in court documents, and so it's
maybe, I guess.
It's public knowledge, so we should all know this.
A fun fact about American-made products. My contraception implant is made in the US. It's made there, not in France. And I get it in France for 300 euros, and it's completely taken by Social Security, so I don't pay for it. Okay, but if I had to pay for it, it would be 300 euros. In the US, that same product is between $600 and $1,600.
Yep,
because the pharmaceutical industry in the United States is completely out of control.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of different networks, a lot of different private networks that can they don't all collectively bargain together saying you're going to sell us the cheapest product possible, and then we'll pass that on to the customers and stuff like that. Because
I feel like it's not something the bulk of American people know, that pharmaceutical products. For sure, there's other products too. But I know for pharmaceutical products, they are way cheaper in Europe than in the US, because we have with
single payer healthcare,
state healthcare. We have
Lido.
We have a power to negotiate the prices, and we still get the meds. I mean,
Lido.
The meds I take for fibromyalgia, the company wants to sell them super expensive, so we don't get a lot of it in France, but we still get some at the price we want. So,
Lido, there's a lot of things American people don't know.
And it's not just that the pharmaceutical companies won't collectively bargain. Medicare and Medicaid are legally prevented from using their buying power to influence drug prices.
Yeah, we owe that one to W, do we not?
What the fuck?
The American healthcare system is screwed up. I mean, I put out a petition at my company to get an initiative onto the ballot this November to vote for a single payer healthcare, for a universal healthcare system, and just in Washington State. It's gotten signatures, and I'm proud of that. But I've been put out there for 2 weeks, and it hasn't filled up, unfortunately. But it's kind of interesting how on the petition, not on the block where the signatures go, but on other places, some passive-aggressive notes have been left behind. Socialism, no. And I go, yes, socialism. And socialism, yes. Socialism. Socialism is awesome. Move to Europe.
Here's one thing that's important to understand about the American healthcare system.
It sucks.
The American healthcare system provides the best healthcare that money can buy. And, of course, that's the problem.
But it doesn't...
If you don't have money, you
can't buy it.
It doesn't even economically make sense sometimes. My insurance refuses to pay for the asthma medication that would, I guarantee, keep me out of hospitals.
Right.
And they put me on cheaper stuff, and once or twice a year I go to the emergency room for a couple $1,000s or more, and that's all paid for by Medicare.
I don't even have to pay for physiotherapy here.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I was talking to a business associate, and it's hard if you know somebody long enough. It's hard for them not to figure out what your politics are. So he brought up, he was talking about healthcare, and I'm like, actually, I'm for single payer system, and he was shocked because I'm a business owner, and I said, no, you don't understand. I 80% of the employers, 80% of employees work for small businesses in the United States. So like every other small business, I've got to compete with the big companies. So I can't charge as much as my larger competitors because they've got depth. They've got that depth that they can use to that people are willing to pay them more because, it's not, I got 10 employees, they're going to rather go someplace where somebody's got 50 or 100, and they'll pay them more because they figure, oh, well, if one guy doesn't know the job, then the next person will, so I have to charge less to be competitive. But on the flip side, because my group is smaller, my rates that I pay are worse. Now, I'm not legally required to carry health insurance, but if I don't, what kind of employees am I going to recruit? I'm not going to get anybody worth a damn because they're going to go to a company that can afford to pay for healthcare. So I have to carry it. Otherwise I'll get the dregs and my business won't grow.
Also, it's the right
you'll have tons of turnover.
Right. So as a result, I'm at a huge competitive disadvantage. I'm an engineering company, an engineering firm. We do automation and controls. I'm not a healthcare company, but I've got to compete in the healthcare market. But if there was a single payer, you just charge me more in taxes, and then now I can just compete on work environment and the challenge of the work and making a good place for people that want to come and stay. And that's it. That would be better.
Yeah, I think wasn't it Amazon who? Ooh, I'm getting feedback.
Yeah, I don't know how you're reckoning.
Amazon and some other digital companies wanted to create their own, basically, insurance company internally to process all the claims.
Yeah.
Because why go to an insurance company where
the thing is, they're big enough
employees to cut the cost by doing it? Exactly. They got together with 3 other big companies and said, hey, let's just create an independent, like an insurance department, and the 3 of us will share the costs of it.
And in the same vein as that, I can't help but notice that there are a lot of states out there now who are talking about developing their own single payer systems on a statewide basis. And it's sort of making me wonder if something could happen in terms of single payer that way, in much the same way that gay rights sort of developed on a state-by-state basis, and it caught on.
It's possible. I mean, here in New Jersey, we have an insurance consortium. It unfortunately doesn't cover healthcare, but New Jersey manufacturers, they do auto insurance, home insurance, and a few other things. But it's the cheapest rates in the state. And to get insurance, your company has to be part of the New Jersey Manufacturers Business Association, which my company is. And then your employees can join. So it's consortium. So basically, you're paying dues, and you're helping to create this entity. So then that's how they do it. So it's kind of exactly what you're talking about. But unfortunately, no healthcare yet.
I mean, single payer from a financial point of view makes sense because
it works everywhere else in the world.
Right.
But here's the thing, and whenever people start talking about their taxes, at least what's worked for me is to just look at them point blank, because I've never actually had the bad luck to have run into someone who will tell me or who will give me the quote unquote wrong answer here. I will ask them point blank, does a person deserve to die on the street because they can't afford healthcare? And invariably these people will tell me no, they don't. And then
corporations are people, so no, they don't.
Well,
wait, you mean flesh people, flesh piles? No, they don't.
Flesh people.
And there's no reason to think that healthcare shouldn't work like a utility as well. I mean, how much more would we have to pay if every time there was a fire we had to pay for the firefighters to come out and put it out? How much would we end up paying in the long run if, every time there was a crime we had to pay a check to the cops to take care of it?
Well, and what that analogy does not take into account is that it is cheaper to keep people healthy than it is to fix crises.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If you look at what we call the cost of ownership, so basically, it's not just the cost to deliver the services; it's the overall cost of the economy. And this is an important part. So what you brought up now is a very important thing, and it goes even further than what you just suggested, because part of the whole, obviously, here in the U.S., the big thing always comes down to, it's socialism, socialism, capitalism, and that's a bullshit argument from all angles. What it really comes down to, it's public funding or private funding.
Spoiler, that's not socialism.
Exactly.
Police and fire departments don't amount to socialism.
Right. But the thing about it,
public schools.
The problem in and look, because capitalism works very well at generating wealth, but it doesn't. But that's all its purpose is to do. The thing is, a public service has a different remit, and so the thing is, you look at when you basically have a private health insurance company. The companies themselves take about 40% off the top as profit. So they're literally marking everything up 40%. So everything it's basically and mind you, and some people said, oh, well, you still have to have somebody to process the claims. And that's true. But remember, this is profit. So that's factoring in all the costs to actually, process claims and send the money around and all that. They add on top of that 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And because the thing is, because since it's privately funded, you have to pay shareholders. You have to incentivize people to fund it. But if you have public funding, the incentive is everybody pays less money, and it costs us less as a society. So that's the incentive is kind of a built-in incentive.
I just hate the profit motive period in like a lot of things. I don't.
No. I have to correct you. Sorry, I interrupt. But the thing is, if you look in Europe, there are private healthcare companies, medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, the same ones that are here. Novartis, Sanofi Aventis, GlaxoSmithKline, they're all around the planet. There's even in a single payer system, there's still people making profit. The thing is they have value added. Whereas now, again, we obviously the U.S. we have the issue of lack of competition and all that. But the thing is that the insurance companies are not a value added service. All their job is literally to process a claim and pay money. That's it. Yeah. They don't add any value, but they're taking 40% markup to do it, and that's the problem.
But I don't think like healthcare should be something that people would make a profit off of personally, something like that. But we have the problem in this country where Republicans simply have the policy of no taxes whatsoever, or something like that. Or it's like, no, I have literally heard this. Some guy said the guns are my right and healthcare is not a right. He didn't say it in the same sentence, but I've heard it a couple of times where he believes guns are a human right. Yet healthcare is not.
But I just wanted to make it clear, though, there is actually no non-profit healthcare on the planet.
Well,
the NHS is a non-profit.
But that's the system that pays for the healthcare. The actual you still have.
Okay. I hear you.
Profit,
you were talking about doctors, pharmaceutical companies, and etc. Okay. I get
and medical device companies. Yeah, that's understandable.
So one of the perversities we have is that we have the conservatives don't believe in social contract theory, such as healthcare, and yet they believe in social contract theory when it comes to borders.
Right. Some social constructs are good.
Yes.
Well, isn't the principle of non-aggression a social contract?
Yes.
On paper, not in practice. Theoretically.
I heard
theoretically, yes.
Somebody, I think it was somebody on Twitter, but I can't remember, came up with made a great point that I had honestly never considered before, which is if you're talking to a conservative person, especially if they're like a very religious Christian conservative, and they're on the Trump side of this immigration thing, and you just ask that person, where do our rights come from? Do they come from the government or do they come from God? And they'll probably say, well, our rights come from God. And then you say, well, then why don't people on the other side of the border have the exact same rights?
Because they're brown.
Exactly. It totally, it shows it for what it is. It's like, so you don't really believe that. What you mean is your rights come from God, not everybody's. You mean just yours.
This is Steve, this is Mammy Yoakum coming. We's all equal, but some people is more equal than others.
And I was thinking about when we were back to the healthcare and economic stuff, and it goes with, but it fits in with everything else we've been talking about too, is that the frustrating thing is that a lot of these arguments are over things where the facts fall all on one side. Like Nat mentioned earlier, it's just an economic fact that it's cheaper to keep people healthy than to help people in health crises. And what Joe was saying about how it just makes more economic sense to have a single payer system, and yet the narrative around these issues has been so dominated and controlled by the right for decades that we still have to have these arguments over things that ought to be just settled fact. And I remember when I was a young person and going through my Republican phase, when I was like a preteen and a teenager, you're like, there are these assumptions like, well, Ronald Reagan was a great president. Like you just assume that. You don't even think about it. It's just a fact. It's an axiom. And I remember, weirdly enough, one of the first cracks in that view for me was I was watching the stand-up special Eddie Murphy Delirious, which was taped in 1983 in the middle of the Reagan era, the beginning of the Reagan era. And he started and it was taped in Washington, D.C. And he name dropped Reagan and the audience booed. And then someone in the audience yelled out, "Reaganomics sucks." And Eddie Murphy says, well, tell us something we don't know, motherfucker. And then he's like, and he starts making fun of people. He's like, are there really people who are going, does it suck? Really? And I thought, like, because my whole, you listen to like Rush Limbaugh and shit, and like, oh, supply side economics, Reagan was the great man. And when you realize, oh shit, there's a ton of people who think he was horrible and that his economic policies were a fucking joke. And that's like the first crack in the view. Because when you have that view of the world, like you don't even think about it. You're like, well, of course low taxes are good. Of course supply side economics trickle down. Of course it works. It makes sense, right? That's what we should do. And you don't realize until you look into it that, like, it's not taken seriously by most economists, that it doesn't have a very good track record, that, that there's it's all built on sand. It's all built on false premises and lies. And people just accept it.
And it hasn't proved out in the field.
No, it's never
proved out in 80. It didn't prove out in 2000. And if it proves out here, I'll drop my teeth.
What about Venezuela?
And see, the problem is,
I'm Venezuela, admin of Venezuela. Listen, Venezuela's not socialism.
Right. Jeez. Well, and the problem. Well, the other thing too is like even if it was, the fact is even if you said, okay, socialism doesn't work, that doesn't mean that something else works either. It's a false dichotomy.
But I don't think capitalism works. Not our current system, capitalism doesn't work. We need a state in order to keep it afloat. Anyway, you go ahead.
The problem is unregulated capitalism has no chance of working. Regulated, controlled capitalism at least has a chance.
Well, and the other thing, the other thing too is that, again, it's also another false dichotomy, because the fact of the matter is socialism is a political system. capitalism
No,
is an economic system.
Can we take that time to define what socialism is?
Let's talk about
actually?
socialism. Let's talk about socialism.
It's going to be super quick because capitalism is an economical system where the owning class owns the means of production.
Including
Socialism is an economical system where the workers control the means of production, and that is all. Everything else is derived. You want to talk about state healthcare, public service, stuff like that. It's all communism. It's not socialism. Okay, let's be clear. It has nothing to do with. No, it has nothing to do. Generally, communists favor socialism or not, because USSR wasn't actually socialist.
Nope.
Because the workers didn't own the means of production. The state was. It was state capitalism.
It was centralized and totalitarian.
They just never got around to giving it to the workers. They were going to give it to the workers. They just never got around to it.
Socialism is.
Well, actually,
and that's all.
In the Soviet Union, nothing to do with whether it's communist or socialist. The fact is, it was autocratic.
Yeah,
and not democratic.
Yeah, it was totalitarian.
I agree.
You can have autocratic capitalism. You can have autocratic socialism, or democratic.
We're finding that out right now,
we're
aren't we?
bordering on autocratic, capitalism right now.
We're conducting a little autocratic capitalist experiment right now in the United States.
But you're right. But again, what you said before, Steve. The biggest problem that we have as people on the left is that reality is subtle, has subtleties, and there's layers, and it's complex. But right-wing philosophy is based on, you're right, there's these rote things, and the reason why they work, the arguments work to people, because it's simplistic. It kind of appeals. It doesn't take a lot of thought. You say, oh well, lower taxes is good, and like, well, sure, that sounds right. Yeah, lower taxes is good. And then if low taxes are good, even lower taxes, that's even better, right?
We talked about this before, where there's this curve where there's an optimum point for the taxes.
Right.
Past one point, you're taxing too much and you suppress production. Past another point, you're not taxing enough, and you end up with the same problems. The problem is this takes that magic word nuance, and nobody wants to deal with nuance. Nobody wants to deal with non-simple solutions, and that is
all the bullshit jobs and useless people.
No, I think I have a simple solution, at least to part of the tax problem and perhaps the money in politics problem, which is Congress needs to pass a law on the tax code that says if you give money to a political candidate or campaign or interest group, you are taxed at an individual tax rate. So corporations can choose. They can give money to politicians and pay the same 39% or whatever it currently is, 35% it is, that other persons pay into it. Yeah. Right. Or they don't put money into politics, and then they can pay their corporate tax rate.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
But if you're going to, because if the Supreme Court says that corporations are persons, then they should be taxed like persons.
That's a great point.
Right? Yeah. Let's jump because I actually faced the alternative minimum tax this past year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm a person. So yeah, why are they not facing AMT?
Yeah.
Well, and it's also the higher up you are on that food chain, the more you benefit from social structures. An individual worker benefits or gets an education and benefits for himself or herself for that education. Yeah. A corporation benefits from all of its workers' education.
Right.
I benefit getting to work. I pay taxes to pay for roads, and that gets me to work to make money, or gets me to the store. A corporation, that is providing their infrastructure, that gets their trucks to their warehouses. All of this is public owned, or most of it is public owned.
Right.
So given the more money you are making off of this system, the more you are benefiting from the infrastructure of the system, and the greater percentage you should owe to pay into that system.
Exactly. Yeah, the more you benefit, your return, and that's the thing, because we know that income is not flat. Like someone making $10,000, a person making $20,000 is actually doing better than twice as well, because there's those minimum basics. You have to have food, you have to have shelter.
But we don't easily provide those minimum basics on like the public level and stuff like that, as too many people are going homeless or are starving, and too many people like are not, those things are not provided, or if they can't work, we must remember that there's a lot of people who just can't work.
Even worse than that.
And they're not given the basic needs publicly and stuff like that. And those systems, we need to put those systems in place at least, because it's not enough to say you have the right to this. No, you need to actually build structures and build like systems in place to ensure that. It's not enough to say you have the right to that. You have to ensure that people have access to those things easily.
I actually have a right-wing argument for raising taxes and raising the minimum wage.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So now, again, the whole principle of non-aggression and all this. So if a company doesn't pay their workers well enough so that they can't survive, even with multiple jobs, they're working as much as practical, and they still can't pay their rent, get food, do the minimum basics. So then our society as a whole ends up funding the rest. So since they consider taxes, violence, so then what you're doing is they're enacting violence against the rest of society by forcing the rest of society to subsidize their workforce. So using the principle of non-aggression then and personal responsibility, then they should have to pay enough so that the company are not placing a burden on the rest of their citizens.
Yeah. It's even worse than that though, because what you're dealing with is a situation where the corporations have gotten this huge tax cut. So they're getting the benefit of all of those things that you outlined, but they're not paying for it.
Exactly.
John, your mic is kind of quiet, but I think you were trying to say something.
Well, no, I was just saying, I was making fun of the right-wing argument. But,
oh, okay.
As long as you were just making fun of things, you didn't miss anything.
I'm not for the right wing. I'm just trying to use their own.
No, not you, Joe, but
the right wing in general.
It reminds me of because a lot of the that principle of people like corporations or the wealthy who have benefits that are much greater than people who aren't as wealthy or aren't business owners on a large scale or whatever. It made me think of Thomas Paine's argument for what we would now call basic income or universal basic income, because his argument was that, and he based it on landowners, because he was writing in like 1795 and it was an agricultural agrarian society. And he said, look, nobody owns the land, people occupy the land. We came up with this idea of private property, and when a person owns land, they're controlling a resource that everybody else can't benefit from.
Exactly.
So what we should do is tax them for on that land, and then they pay, and they're basically paying the public for the right to own that land and to benefit from it more than other people.
Yeah, they rent the land from the public.
Yeah, and that,
you careful, Steve. You're starting to sound a little communist there.
No, we're turning.
Are you calling me a pinko? Yes. Are you saying Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers of this great nation, was a pinko?
That's why he died in poverty.
I think I actually thought of a way to fund it, because again, I've been always on the fence about basic income, but I kind of been convinced, but I thought of a way that I think it could work.
Okay,
it's not similar, but not exactly the same. But I tried thinking about it. I said, well, one of the reasons why, one of the things that if you look in the Soviet Union and in China before, because China's pretty much gone capitalist for the most part, So what didn't work there? And I said, well, the problem is that if there is a problem if there's no incentive for excellence. So because if you do, and I've actually even seen it here in the U.S. A guy I used to work with who was an excellent engineer, but the company didn't ever reward him for his excellent work. So he basically dialed it back and he put in his 8 hours and he did nothing extra, because he said, well, why should I put myself out? Because I'm going to get paid the same as the guy next to me, and the company, this in this particular environment, the company is not rewarding me, even though I'm running rings around the other person. So I said, okay, so I thought about it. So how do you make this work? Because if you had a system where you have basic income, you still have to have some incentive to do better. So I said, okay, so what's the real problem? Well, the real problem is the perpetuation of wealth. So So, and you know, the right wing is very much against, you know, they call it the death tax, you know, but really you're not taxing the dead person, you're taxing the live person who's getting money that they didn't earn.
Right, inheritance.
Right.
That's
So I thought about this. I said, okay, well, if just say you have basic income and up to 18, or you know, well, obviously everyone up to 18 is gonna get paid, gonna get something, and they're gonna also benefit from their parents. But once you hit 18, you'll get your basic income, and you can do more by working and doing better.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you earn extra, that's yours. But once you die, it's gone.
Okay, yeah. So that's like the extra that you earn, it gets like tax or something like that, and goes back to the public fund.
So it's effectively a very, very heavy estate tax. So
yeah, how am I supposed to make sure my children will be better than other people?
It's going to take a majorly hit on that.
What's that?
Yeah. The whole concept of the estate, you know, anything, a posthumous existence of a person is going to take a major league hit.
Yes.
And you're going to get
taxes like that in France.
But see, the thing is, one of the big things about building up a state is you're trying to take care of your progeny, but you don't need to worry about it because you have a system of minimum of basic income. So this way, if your feckless children want to do better, then they need to get off their butts and do something.
Well, as long as there's a mechanism for passing down sentimental objects.
Yeah, sentimental objects and personal property is totally fine. It's right.
Yeah. Watch the definitions for that go crazy.
Oh yeah.
Well, hey, personal property does not include land. I can tell you that. I'm not. But personal property can include house.
Well, if there's a caveat that if it's ever sold, then your
personal property is everything you use.
Yes, everything that you use is personal property. So
your house, your land, if you live on it, is yours. The problem with private property is when you say you buy 3 houses and you make people pay to live in them.
Yeah, rent. Let's abolish rent. Period.
That's private property. The house you live in is not private property. When communists and anarchists say they want to abolish private property, they are not talking about your house, your car, your computer, your toothbrush, whatever.
They're talking about
the toothbrush is a meme because that's the argument of every single people who wants to somehow counter the argument against private property. Yeah. But I don't want to share my toothbrush.
You don't
What the fuck, dude? It's gross. Keep your fucking toothbrush.
No, you have to share toilet paper.
Anyways, in France, we are taxed on inheritance. The state takes 60% of what we are left. It's a pain in the ass because there is no basic income in France. When my grandma died, she left us a little money, and it didn't last long because the state really takes a lot. And I don't know what they do with those particular taxes. Actually, I have to.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that should be public knowledge, public information available.
I think it's you can easily know. I just never look into it.
Well, yeah, that's fine. One thing about the basic universal income or the universal basic income, there have always been a few experiments, but there have been experiments that have been done. There's a TED Talk about it. Like there was an experiment that done in Toronto, and they found that only 1 or 2% of the working force actually left the workforce once they got the basic universal income. But what they found is that the most of people that left the workforce, they were mothers taking care of their children, and we're all for that, I can say, or students going back to college to further their education, and I think we're all for that too. And so,
all disabled people who can finally take a little rest because
yes, and the
system is in. We talked about it yesterday night. You know what I think about it, Jonathan. But being disabled under capitalism is a death sentence to a lot of people.
I know too many people that have to resort to e-begging essentially because they're not given enough because of the invisible.
If they're given anything at all, because when you have an illness that is not recognized yet,
exactly,
you're in the shit.
One thing that kind of changed my mind a little bit on basic income. I was out in the store. I don't like to shop, but you know, I do like to support local businesses. So I'm out in the shop, and I forget whatever I was buying, and I'm dealing with the sales people, you know, the attendants, clerks, whatever, and it was very clear that they didn't want to be there. They hated their job. They weren't very good at it. And obviously, I know they weren't getting paid. We're probably getting paid minimum wage. And I thought, okay, so what's the societal value of having this person be here in this job, doing a job they hate, that they're not good at, and all they're doing is frustrating me? I'd rather just pay them to stay home and be out of the way. There'd be less traffic.
Well,
you know, I mean, seriously.
I'll pay you to stay.
Income gives.
I was actually going to make the same point Joe just made, where the sort of person that would just, you know, stay at home and not work at all is the sort of person that everyone hates working with, that everyone hates, you know, being served by. They would be better not in the capitalist system anyway.
Then they don't even necessarily stay at home. I mean, if you don't have to take that kind of a shitty job to survive, maybe you can learn how to play music or draw or cook, and you become super good at it, and you are useful to society at last.
Something you enjoy.
Musicians are in no way useful to society.
How many people would be teachers if they could afford it?
Exactly. Or look at our history. Look at our greatest scientists, our greatest artists. They either died in poverty or they had independent wealth.
Or a benefactor who was wealthy.
Or a benefactor who was wealthy.
Or a cushy government job.
Capitalism rewards creation of capital, but there's so much more that actually benefits society. And you know, there's art. There's how many
Well, one thing too, it's kind of interesting what's going on of late, and obviously a lot of people are concerned about the impact of automation on jobs and things like that.
Automation is coming, though. Yeah.
Well, it is, and that's what I do for a living. Although ironically, I have a hard time finding, qualified people to do the job. So I'm like, hey, I'm hiring and but
you got room for a Maryland drafter who can remote.
If I want to import workers from another country, I can get 15 resumes tomorrow. But finding people that are already citizens, whether they're immigrants or born locally, is difficult, and it's way easier to find someone who's an immigrant, who's qualified, who lives here. Which is ironic when I see they're trying to push immigrants away. I'm like, no, that's my workforce, because
show up.
Well, that goes to a couple of different things. That goes to the whole educational thing. It goes to the whole motivational thing in the students these days, which is absolutely horrid.
Oh yeah,
it goes to a lot of dynamics that are really, showing off some horrible characteristics in the American culture in the 2010s.
Exactly. Now, on the flip side, with the automation, here's the irony of it is, as much as it's going to cause a lot of disruption in the next 50 years, but to actually get to that society where basic income and actually, because you really only need about 10% of the population to actually do any manufacturing work.
If you have a basic income, automation becomes a good thing,
right?
Because the awful jobs can be done by robots, mining, cashier, that kind of things. You don't
we only need
break their bodies doing that.
Exactly. We only need like a 16-hour work week at most. We don't need a 40-hour work week at most.
You need roughly about 10 to 15% of the population to work in manufacturing, and like 2 to 3% in agriculture, and now you could literally feed and clothe and house everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So then basic income makes a hell of a lot of sense, because there literally won't be enough jobs. I mean, you're gonna need people because you will need some people to operate the factories. You will need some people to maintenance and stuff like that. The machines can't do everything, but you'll need people like me to design the next generation of stuff. You don't need most people to actually have a job and work. And and the thing is, it's not like we've been kind of bamboozled into like labor, working for a job, for a living is the only noble pursuit of a human life.
Exactly, that's the problem.
And
I mean,
that's why it's ableist as fuck.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
people who can't work are useless like things. We are not things. We don't need a use.
Well,
if people don't have to work, how do they prove they get to deserve to live and not die?
That's what I was just going to say. That's the point I was just going to make, is that there's this attitude that a lot of people naturally have, that we're brought up with, that even if
we're
it's
indoctrinated with it.
Yeah, it's never said outright that you have to earn the right to be happy and comfortable and exist. Right,
and live and be healthy in your country.
That's the message.
People want to produce.
Steve, there's another
People
problem.
want to be productive.
There's another problem in this, though, and that is that you're still dealing with a transition. That is to say, a transition from a working culture to a leisure culture. And indeed, it's not even ever going to be a purely leisure culture. Right. It will always be hybrid because you have the maintenance people, you have the troubleshooters like me, you've got people, those sometimes simple and not so simple jobs that machines either can't do, or the engineering that would allow them to do it has not been developed yet.
Right.
But I think that but we are more closer to a leisure society, where it's like we don't have to work as many hours a week as we do, only like 16 hours a week, because automation will take care of a lot of those jobs. Even for the crappy jobs, I bet there'll be enough people who love to do the crappy work in order to do that.
How many people do you know, that like to do nothing all fucking day long? I know no one, even all the cripples like me, I know we hate doing nothing. We do stuff.
There's a reason.
The human mind has a need to do things.
We like doing things, and we don't like all doing the same thing. That's the my partner and I don't like cooking. If I could, I don't know, live in a society where I go eat at my neighbors who love to cook, and she comes pick up clothing from me because I know how to make it. Oh, the freedom, the real freedom.
What's really funny is I've said forever that I don't believe in utopic systems, that there's because human nature and all that. But what's funny thing
the human nature argument. I have some opinions about human nature arguments.
What I've always said, if I were to name my pie in the sky dream, what would it be? It would basically be a technocracy. And I'm thinking, actually, with the automation and basic income,
I think Paul Mason
get there.
I think Paul Mason has covered that in his book Post-Capitalism. You can find talks he did on YouTube of post-capitalism, and only from Philosophy 2 to have get a quick vlog review of post-capitalism. That's a book I need to read, because I think Paul Mason says, listen, automation is coming, and we need an economic system after capitalism. We have to think beyond capitalism, because automation is going to take away a lot of jobs. There's not going to be enough jobs for everyone. I've kind of saw that when I think, wait a minute, if everyone goes to high school and get at least BA, would they be able to get a job for that BA and stuff like that? There's not enough jobs for all the people with BAs right now, and so we need the universal basic income. I would have been an actor already if I had universal basic income. You probably would see me on YouTube videos or on TV shows if there was the universal basic income, or where you live in a narco-syndicalist and narco-communist society, or libertarian socialist and stuff like that, because the necessary work is only, if everyone pitches in and everyone contributes, it will only be 16 hours per week for everyone and stuff like that. And then everyone else can find whatever it is they're good at and pursue that, or education and pursue that, research and pursue that, and we'll have a lot more people that are passionate about what they do, whatever they do, including all the necessary stuff like doctors and engineers and all that other stuff. And all of the bullshit jobs would not be needed.
It's interesting if you think about it. Society worldwide has transformed a lot. With 300 years ago, almost entirely agrarian. Basically, 70-80% of the workforce worked just to make the food, and then the remainder made clothing and buildings and stuff like that. And yeah, and you needed lots and lots of people to do that. And now, yeah, it's literally like 5% of the workforce makes 100% of the food.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey,
and we waste too much food. We throw away a lot of food.
We make more food than we need.
That gets into an entirely different conversation about personal responsibility and understanding the entire dynamic of the society we're living in.
Part of
it's a lot of corporate waste. It's almost entirely corporate waste.
And there's lots of
because we live in a society where what the things we need to do need to be made for profit. Is profit-driven society instead of a need-driven society.
So we just throw a lot away.
Something that really got to me, that kind of I felt it gave me some insight. I had to switch to a dry mouth toothpaste, and it has no detergent in it, and I've been using it for 2 years, and it is still hard to use because I've been growing up. I've spent 30 years indoctrinated that I need to have detergent in my. Detergent makes a better, foamy toothpaste, and it's not true, but you've got the weight of social engineering, and this is all corporate side. How much can you say personal responsibility when you have so much corporate force that's deliberately engineer these needs?
Well, and especially given the way our economic system works, like you think about how many crappy products you bought because you couldn't afford the good one. Yeah. The crappy one never lasts as long, and over your lifetime, you'll spend way more money buying 7 or 8 of the crappy one. Where if you had the money at the time and could have afforded the good one, and this is something I learned like as my relatives have died off and I've had to clear out their spaces, and they're just accumulating. Unfortunately, I come from a family of hoarders, and just the accumulated junk and just garbage. Stuff I was looking forward to trying to donate stuff to charity, and everything was garbage. And it was like there's a house chock-a-block full of stuff, and it's worthless. And these people didn't have a lot of money, and thinking, wow, if they had been able to buy the good versions of all of these, they couldn't have been hoarders, because they wouldn't have had as many, 15 of copies of this and 12 copies of that. They would have had the good ones, and they actually would have had more money in their pocket.
I mean, how many times have we upgraded our cell phones or have to upgrade our computers? The forced obsolescence in these things is all profit driven and stuff like that. I still have an alarm clock that was built in the 70s. It still works. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. It doesn't have a radio, but it still works, and I'll use it for what it's worth. But for a lot of products made today, there's a lot of forced obsolescence, and that causes a lot of waste, and so it causes a lot of garbage and landfills, and so all because of we're living a profit driven.
The biggest single issue of forced obsolescence in those phones are the damn batteries.
Exactly.
A lot of the technology of the batteries desperately needs to be improved. There's also been a lot of talk about modular phones. That'd be great. The thing is, the battery is what's holding everything back on those things. If we can come up with supercapacitors or batteries that don't suffer from dendritic problems, in terms of degradation of the quality of the battery, you can go an awfully long way towards a phone. I mean, I've got my Moto, which I've had for 2.5 years, and it's great. But I'll tell you what, a lot of the reason why it's great is because of the battery. I can still go 4 days without a charge.
Wow.
But there's a difference between that sort of problem and forced obsolescence, where forced obsolescence is they actually force the product
where they engineer it in. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's become less and less of that. I think because people have been called on it.
Yeah.
Now, before we get, we're at the end of the hour. I want to wrap up soon, but before we get too far away from automation and robots taking over everything, I want Joe. I want Joe to share with us his Ultron theory that he mentioned before.
Which was a robot that was going to take over. So I'm watching Iron Man 3 last night.
Great movie in my opinion.
I know a lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought it was certainly better than number 2.
I liked it a lot.
And because Tony did a lot of out of suit things, he actually developed some character. But
and Ben Kingsley.
One thing I was thinking about is you think about that movie, and in the beginning, he can't sleep, he's paranoid, and he's got I got to make the thing that's going to save the world, because he's still suffering PTSD from from New York City, from the Battle of New York. And so it occurred to me, well, of course he went on to make Ultron, because if you think about what the I forget what they're called, but basically all his autonomous robots or semi-autonomous robots or suits at the end, that was basically his first attempt.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine pointed out that, but he got the idea from Denko with the Mandroids in number 2.
That's true. Yeah.
So it actually all fits, because I heard some people they were like, well, why is he making this robot? In Ultron, their criticism of Ultron is it didn't make sense what he was doing. I'm like, but if you actually look at the character arc, it made perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. Well, and it goes along with like Tony's his personal character arc of needing to fix everything. You know, like he feels he has the guilt of the life that he led up until Afghanistan, and like his whole motivation for the rest of the movies has been trying to fix things that he feels responsible for.
Right. And then so the whatever he called this fleet in number 2, in number
I think
3,
it was the Iron Legion. So he destroyed them with the clean slate protocol. So he basically, Ultron was him starting over. Yeah.
Well, yeah. My brother, I remember after Civil War.
Yeah, and so if you think about it,
Tony was never assigned to Wakanda Corps. They said, no, you haven't watched the other 16 movies.
You haven't watched the other 16
So the androids were Denko's attempt, but obviously they had a central thing, and they had problems. So then Tony did his own thing. He liked the idea, and he went there, and then that didn't quite work. So he started over. And then now and you think of it, so basically the Mandroids were like controlled from a central location, supposedly, and then you had Jarvis controlled the Iron Legion, and then Ultron was again an attempt to kind of do that same thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people's like plot related problems with movies are solved if you just pay closer attention. I mean, it's not as though, because there are definitely plot holes in movies. Every movie has them where there's just no resolution to it. It just doesn't make sense. But a lot of the things that people complain about, like if there's an answer for it in the movie, if you just pay closer attention.
Another thing, personally, it's just like, if I think about it, it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, does that distract from the experience I'm feeling, the emotions I'm feeling, the scene in the movie? And if I say, no, it doesn't, then I still say it's a good movie. But if I learn something, it's like, oh, wait a minute, that does change things, then maybe. But that's an individual basis on like individual movies.
The one of those that bothers me the most from like the last several years is, and it didn't bother me at the time, but it's bothered me more and more as I've seen the movie again and as I've thought about it. And it bothered a lot of people at the time, is in The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman is just back in Gotham and they never explain how he got back on after they blew up the bridges and everything.
Yeah.
And they set up, and like, he's just there, And at the time watching the movie, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, it's a 2.5-hour movie. You know what I mean? Like, let's just get him the fuck back to Gotham. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, but that's such a great like scene that they didn't do. To show how smart Batman is. Yeah, like to show how smart Batman is, because they've established like, oh, Gotham's completely cut off from the rest of the world and nobody can get in or out. It's like, oh, okay, no, let's think of a really clever way for Batman to sneak back in and we'll show how smart he is. Nah, forget it. We'll just have him show back in.
What's the matter with a helicopter?
Also, the bit where he lights the building with the bat symbol. How much better would that a movie have been if essentially they hadn't captured Gordon and what made Batman have the strength to get out of that hole was the citizens of Gotham do things like that. It's like, we need you back, that sort of thing, and then have the scene of him coming in.
And one other thing, and I won't, since I see that Lito has not seen Infinity War, so I'm not going to spoil it. All I'll say is, if you have access to Doctor Strange, if you've seen Infinity War, go back and watch Doctor Strange, because there's a few like moments like that things will gel now, and things that you that you didn't even think about when you were watching Infinity War.
Doctor Strange is one of those movies that I think when it first came out, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is okay." It didn't get a lot.
It was good.
I thought it was. I liked it too, but I mean, it didn't get as much of like, it didn't land with as much of a splash as a lot of the other ones. No,
I saw it in 3D, the IMAX 3D, and that movie was totally worth it.
But like what Joe said, if you go, it turns out, I think plot wise and in terms of setting things up, like it turns out to be really important.
Yeah. One comment I'll throw in as it comes to Infinity War is how pivotal Strange is in it.
Oh, he's
yes,
and I mean pivotal. I mean, as in, if they succeed in part 2, it'll be because of Strange.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think they're looking for him to be one of the leading characters in the next phase. You know, because like spoiling nothing, but I mean, if you read Variety, like, I mean, people are pretty sure that Robert Downey Jr. only has 1 or 2 more of these in him, and then he's just gonna.
Don't worry about spoiling Infinity Wars. I'm not that bothered with it than I was with other movies. I really was waiting for.
You don't want the spoiler. Believe me, trust me, you don't want to hear the spoilers.
Yeah.
No, I'd rather not. But if it happens, it's not a big deal.
Because I'm to the point where
buy them for you on Amazon or something. Because
I had some friends that they saw the movie, and then I asked them what their impression, and they're like, I can't even tell you that without spoiling the movie. Like, not even saying. And then I didn't understand, and then I saw it, and I came out and I'm like, oh yeah,
I get it.
I can't tell anybody anything.
The trailer didn't make me want to watch it. It was pretty.
The trailer doesn't do it justice. It doesn't remotely do it justice.
Every one of my friends who is talking about it really makes me want to watch it. So
I will say personally, after being so impressed by Black Panther, I went into Avengers thinking, okay, this will be fun, but this will just be a movie. And it was so much better than I expected it to be. Like I was so impressed and so affected by it. I was like, well, I not in a million years did I expect it to be that good.
Steve, two things on that. Number one, I mean, were they going for epic? Because I think they damn near got there.
I think they got there, yeah. Well, and especially if you think of it as just the first half of a 2-part story. I mean, once the second half once it's finished.
And then the other thing is, I mean, I've seen a number of reviews that refer to just talk about the tragedy in it.
Yeah. Oh God.
Well, and I'm thinking, and without meaning to throw in any spoilers, in one word, stark.
Yeah.
Where he is left.
Now the one thing too, because of it, is I can't wait. It's only 11 days now until I can see
Ant-Man and Wasp.
And Ant-Man and Wasp. It was, even though it chronologically takes place before Infinity War, they couldn't show it to us because it would spoil Infinity War.
Yeah.
And they haven't told us the title of Avengers 4 yet because it would spoil either of those movies. So, so basically, once Ant-Man has gone through its run and kind of once it starts to peter off, then so we're talking probably like August, late August, we'll finally get to hear what the new next Avengers movie
is. And of course, they decided to just boot the next season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. until next year. Because
well, the question is,
we're not dealing with this Infinity War.
Survived.
Well, it's a good point because they do mention at the end of there's a tie-in in the end.
They mentioned that it's happening. Yeah. My idea for it was because I'm a huge fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and my wife and I watch it every week, and we were like, how are they going to work in Infinity War in this? Because they go out of their way to acknowledge that this is happening and remind you that it's all in the same universe. I'm like, how are they going to work in, because the events of Infinity War are so catastrophic, and
just don't.
and their solution was just, we'll wait till after the second movie and then we'll just come back after that. And that's okay. That's one way to do it. My idea was just have everybody on the team be okay and make that like a mystery for the rest of the season. Just like oh wow, everybody's okay. Nobody else is okay. And just have that be a mystery for the rest of the season. And if it's so you're booting it, but you're saying, okay, let's give ourselves 3 or 4 months to think up a good reason for why this happened, for why we kept the cast.
I think they should all be Skrulls.
Should all be what?
That coming. Skrulls. They should all be. Well, they set up the life model decoys. They should all turn out to be androids, and they've been androids, since they came back from the future.
Robots. Talking about robots and movies, nothing to do with the MCU, but if you were as excited as I was to watch Pacific Rim Uprising, don't watch it. Don't do it.
I am sorry, Ulysses. I'm sorry.
Forget about it.
don't watch it, or just don't have expectations?
Both. Don't watch it. If you have expectations, don't watch it. If you don't have expectation, I guess it's okay, but it's so shitty.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed the Gundam was not fighting in the final scene. There was a Gundam we saw off in the corner. Oh, be awesome if that Gundam would start fighting in the final scene. That didn't happen. So
I'm just laughing doubly because back when I was in college, one of my friends had gone to see the movie Salsa. It's it's an 80s movie, and so we're talking, and she turns to me excitedly and goes, "Oh, did you see Salsa?" And I said, "No, not yet. What do you think?" And she's, "Oh, don't. It's terrible."
Well, that's the Second Pacific Rim in a nutshell. The only good thing in that movie is John Boyega, because he's fucking amazing. I love him. But other than that, no. Yeah, there's 1 or 2 giant robots. Okay, that's cool. But if you were expecting something as good as the first one,
no, it's not as good. It definitely said that, at least.
Miles from.
Hey, if I need giant robots, I can always fall back on Voltron.
Yeah, or Gigantor, or Giant
I wish that
Johnny Sacco.
I wish that had been one of the reviews. A critic had just said, "Yeah, there's 1 or 2 giant robots, so that's okay." I mean, all right. So I'm going to wrap this up. This has been fun as always. We always end up talking about such interesting things. And,
wait! Yes. Look! I have teeth.
Little, speak. You have teeth. Or
nice.
Congratulations.
Oh, wait,
told you. I was showing my teeth to everyone.
See, does
and not because you're mad.
Need to watch Legion, Lito?
Steve, you still need to watch Legion.
I haven't watched Legion yet.
No, I'm not harassing Steve with that anymore, except on the Q&A videos.
Chat, yeah,
it's going to be my gimmick now.
Yeah.
Have you read the bread book? Has
Everybody
everyone
needs
read
a
the
gimmick.
bread book?
I haven't watched Legion. I just started the new season of Luke Cage. I'm 3 episodes in, so
I finished it already.
Oh,
That's
far ahead of me.
That's how good I found it was. I watched it in 2 days.
I've heard a lot of people say it's really good. I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm only 3 episodes in.
Fucking good.
Jessica Jones yet?
I haven't. I completely missed season 2 of Jessica Jones. I need to go back and catch up on that. I haven't seen that.
Need to catch up on that too.
It came out and I was like, oh, I got to watch that, and then it just got away from me. So I have to go back.
Not as good as the first season, but it's but
that's what I hear.
Nothing can be.
Yeah, I know that first season of Jessica Jones.
The first season was amazing. Oh my god, that's one of the shows where it's like I love it even more when someone else mentioned the context. It's like, oh, the relationship between Jessica Jones and Kilroy. That's like an analogy for a abusive relationship. I'm like, oh my god, it is so true. That show is so much more awesome now.
It's not just an analogy for an abusive relationship. It's an abusive relationship. So yeah, I'm gonna watch that later, and I need to watch. I'm gonna go back and rewatch the first Lieutenant Barclay episode of Next Generation, because that's what the Trek Actually video is about, and that's coming up this week, and I need to finish writing that. So yeah.
Okay, and so watch Legion.
And I'll watch it at some point. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks to all of you for watching. This is something I do every month for folks who are good enough to support me on Patreon. If you're watching and you like my YouTube work and you want to help me out, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a patron as little as $1 a month, and you get the opportunity to come and join us and take part in our reindeer games here once a month. We always have a good time. So thanks to everybody for joining me. As always, thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll do this again next month. Bye, everybody. Yay.